And hi guys, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Miranda Hess from Lehigh County. I'm a co-facilitator for the Lehigh Valley Supporting Families Collaborative, and I have my co-facilitator Emily, who I will let introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Gonzalez Brown from Northampton County. Like Miranda mentioned, we're here for the collab and we have Kristen presenting. So the floor is yours, Kristen.
Alrighty, let me share my screen. Okay. So I'm Kristen Benway. I am currently work for the ARC of Lehigh and Northampton counties. I am the Chief Strategy Officer here and oversee our advocacy department. My colleague Susan Kluge is on this webinar as well, so thanks for the support. Uh, I have just a little background on me. I'm going to age myself, probably 20, over 20 years of experience in the IDD field. I started at Lehigh County as a sports coordinator, actually was a DSP way back in the day. And I then worked for Sam Aiken Supports Coordination for from 2012 until this year. And I just recently started at the ARC in August of this year. The ARC, just a little bit of background. People are typically familiar with ARCs. They're across the nation. They're in almost every state. I think they are in every state. There's multiple ARCs across Pennsylvania. The ARC is each chapter does different services, but the one thing that we do have in common is that we all do advocacy. So that's our binding piece is the advocacy component of what we do, and each ARC does advocacy a little bit differently. Our it could be resources, it can be legislative advocacy, special education advocacy one-on-one, or just giving people resources. But there's a plethora of ways that we advocate, and our advocacy department, which we can talk about a little bit towards the end, really does a lot of resource information. We do our own webinars, we do special education one-to-one advocacy. We're currently growing, and we have some new people starting, and we're really hoping to get out more in the community. So that's just a little bit of background, and I will get started. So when we talk about advocacy, a lot of times people think of fighting and doing different things and standing with pickets and yelling to make changes, but it can be a lot of different things, and it can be done in a lot of different ways. you know, it can be speaking up for a person for what they need to live, learn, work, and belong in the community. It can be just working with schools and collaborating with community agencies and other providers to solve problems. And it can be going out and helping change systems like the laws, budgets, policies, so more people can thrive. And each of those things can be done in various ways as well. But the most important thing is that using your own voice, and using it to help inspire others to find theirs. So we really encourage you to do what feels right for you in advocacy, and are going to talk a little bit about the various ways that advocacy can look like. Sorry, it is the end of a long day. So a couple things. There's different types of advocates and advocacy. We have self advocates. So there's people with disabilities that will go to the legislators and advocate for themselves. And we really promote that. And our ultimate goal is to get people to become self advocates so that they can sit at the table and speak for themselves about what their needs are because they're the expert on themselves. So advocacy on that end can be anything from asking in the community for accommodations, participating in their own meetings, choosing their own goals and supports, or going to a legislator's office and telling their story and showing them how budgets and laws directly affect them. And then there's individual advocacy, and this is supporting somebody with a disability in their advocacy journey and supporting people, a group of people. So it could be family members, it could be an ally, it can be anybody within the community that is working to solve a problem that is affecting those around them. So it could be working to fix service gaps, addressing safety and quality, appealing decisions, finding community supports, joining a march, it's voting, it's anything you can think of that can make a change. It's calling your legislators, it's staying up to date and understanding what's going on in your community. And then the systems advocacy is changing policies so more people benefit. So we're talking big picture that we're really working on coalitions and public comments on waivers to look at that big picture change. But in each of these areas, we want to bring at the person's voice. So as much as we get to the big picture systems advocacy, we really want to look at how does that track back to the person, and we can do that through either their voice, our voice, what a good day looks like, what their goals are, just really understanding what we're advocating for. Oh, my light just went off because I have an automatic light in my office. Hold on one second. Okay. So when we're talking about advocating at any level, be it with your legislators, be it at a school, be it with a provider agency, we really want to look at how to be prepared. We want to come in and make sure that we know our issue, what our goal is, what the outcome of the meeting that we're going to have is, who can decide the outcome, and bring one or two key factors and a clear ask. We want to have a clear understanding of at the end of our meeting what we want to request, ask, advocate for. So the most important thing is to personalize. Leading with real stories with consent of the individual is so important. A lot of our legislators, they're looking for specific local stories for the people that are in their districts, and they want specific examples. We want to make sure we're looking at partnering and treating staff as allies, assuming good intent, but being firm about needs and rights. We want to partner as much as possible. Partnerships help us move forward in all aspects. We want to be professional, concise, organized, and if we're meeting with somebody or doing a phone call, we want to follow up in writing. Big thing, and we want to be persistent. A lot of legislative change in government, everything takes a long time, as we all know. So celebrating the small wins and not getting discouraged because things take a long time. There's multiple processes, checks and balances, all sorts of things. Sometimes we don't see the change as quick as we would want to, but continuing that advocacy journey is so important. So when you are preparing for a meeting, be it a school, provider, county, state, federal legislators, there's a couple things that you can bring to be prepared for those meetings that would help you stay on track and stay focused on the issue. A one-page summary of who the person is, if it's yourself, if it's your loved one, if it's a group of people that you support, strengths, the needs, and again, what you're asking for. You want a short timeline of if it's a specific issue, what happened when and what you tried. If it's a bigger issue, again, what's happening, when's it happening, and what's the effects. Key documents based on where you're going for your advocacy, and these can be, if an IEP and ISP evaluations, if you're advocating for a specific person, a leave behind sheet, so you can leave something, be it the story of the individual, a picture, your contact information, and any next steps that you are asking for. And it's always good to have a follow-up email in any capacity that you're advocating, just to make sure you have a written trail. And I'm going to be sending out a packet afterwards that the ARC of Pennsylvania created that has a ton of different form letters and templates that you can use and kind of follow along and guide for different scenarios and sections. So what's really important to legislators when you are going to talk with them is local statistics. If you're preparing and you want to come with, some of the facts, you don't have to have, everything perfect. You don't have to be an absolute expert. But if there's data, our world is run by data. Statistics are so important. So seeing how many people, how many constituents in the area that this is affecting, um, it's a huge help in decision making and moving things forward. How state monies are being spent in the district. Sometimes, it's not always a negative thing. It's showing how the the money is being spent and it is benefiting somebody. How it helped, maybe OVR funding helped move somebody forward in employment. Showing how money, the waiver money is being spent to make somebody's life more, independent. So there's different ways to show how that is being spent. And the opposite way too, if something is not being done correctly, those stories also are impactful. The real life stories, again, if you're going to visit a legislator, bringing, if you're a self advocate, that's great, and you're bringing yourself and advocating for yourself, but bringing your loved one, bringing, the person that you are supporting, and having that person's face with their name and their story is extremely valuable, and it humanizes, and it really makes a large impact. And you want to give your what specific legislative action that you're looking, that's going to make you happy at the end of your meeting, what that you're, if at the end of the day, if this happened, that would make your life better, give you relief, support your community. So you want to have something specific that with your ultimate goal in the end. I've been on multiple webinars with legislators, and they truly, truly, truly want to hear what directly affects the constituents in their district. So when you're looking at folks in Bethlehem or in Allentown, making sure you're finding the legislator that supports you in that area. So, like I said in the beginning, there's a ton of different ways that you can take action. There's big ways, there's small ways, there's loud ways, there's quiet ways. There's really no wrong way to take action. You want to start somewhere. So some ideas are emails to local and state officials, letter writing, telling your stories. And again, I'll send out some advocacy tools after this. Phone calls to your legislators' offices, visits to legislators at the district office or in Harrisburg, attending community events, meetings, and talking to legislators, joining advocacy groups, local task force or committees, informing others in support groups that you're at, passing on information to others, inviting officials to your meetings or special events, attending Advocacy and Policy Day in Harrisburg or the Policy Summit seminar in Washington, D.C. And there's smaller levels there's town halls that are more local often that occur. Attending local trainings are also a great way to self-advocate and to learn more about the community and how it affects people. And also, I should have put this on here, but voting. I mean, that's a great way to advocate. And it's your easy step. So I have a little quote on the bottom: when you doubt your power, you give power to doubt. Never think that your voice doesn't matter, and the little things can truly be big things. Okay. And I have a couple, just some examples. I know sometimes it's really hard to put together what your story is, and it's meaningful because your story in a short amount of time, because your story can be a whole lifetime, right? So, and if you're telling somebody else's story, we want to make sure that we do it in a way that is simple but also powerful. So we're looking at who the problem is, and something about them, what their strengths are, what their hopes are, what matters to them, what the problem is, what's happening right now, in the world, what's occurring, what problem needs to be fixed. Thinking of, if you're looking at the issue with DSPs, that, if it's a family and you're advocating for increased wages, that calling in and saying that, we can't find help staff to help support us, and it's difficult for us to work. And that goes into the impact piece of how it affects the person's safety, health, learning, work, family stability, and your solution. Asking for the legislator to vote on a certain bill, or asking to advocate for additional funds in the budget for a fiscal year, and really looking and explaining what that success would be and what it would mean to you. So we have a simple example here. And I'll just read that. It says, "My son loves being part of his community and wants a real job. Right now, we can't find enough staff for support, so he's missing work opportunities and his anxiety is rising. I'm asking you to support sustainable funding for community service and the direct support workforce so people can live and work safely in our community." As you can see, this is a couple sentences, but it's very powerful. It's telling what's happening, it's telling the effect on the individual, and it's telling what we're asking for. And again, we want to have consent matters. If the story is not your own, make sure that you're asking the person what they want shared and what they want to stay private when passing that on. But again, legislators, a lot of times, especially in person, they don't have a lot of time. So we want to be prepared and make sure that our story is simple, concise, and it has movement and a specific ask. So I know in our world today, a lot of times we talk about SMART goals. When we're making an ask to legislators, we want to do the same thing. We want to be specific. What exactly do we want? Measurable. How will we know when it happened? Achievable. Who has authority? Relevant. Why it matters to the constituents, and time bound by when. So again, a couple short. You're sending an email. Say, "Hello, my name is Kristen. I live in Bethlehem. My family relies on community supports for my daughter. Will you co-sponsor this bill to help increase DSP wages?" and signing it your name and a phone number. Or calling and asking your senator or representative to support a bill to increase DSP wages. And this matters to me because my son or daughter, my daughter needs additional supports, and so that my family can work. And it's difficult for us to maintain our jobs because we don't have enough staffing. Can you tell me the legislator's position on this? So again, very specific, but short. It does not have to be a novel. It's clear, and we're asking, and we're very specific on what we're looking for. So just a little bit on how policy change happens in Pennsylvania and kind of where your voice might fit. We start with an idea or a problem, and a bill is referred to the committee. It then goes to the committee for vote. It can be either passed on, or it can kind of be dropped. If it's passed on, it goes to the floor for a vote. And then if it's vote in a positive, it goes to the other chamber, either the Senate or the Congress, which way it's going. And if it's passed there, it will go to the governor for signature. So there's a lot of different places, and you don't necessarily need to know this, but when you think about the life cycle of legislation, there's not one perfect place where you're going to step in to advocate. You can advocate at any point, anytime, anywhere, throughout the cycle, and that, or advocate for an idea or problem to be brought to policy, and for a bill to be created to be referred to the committee. So where families and self-advocates can have the most impact is before the bill is introduced, sharing stories, proposing fixes, asking for sponsorship of the bill by your local legislator. When the bill is in committee for vote, you can contact the committee members, submit written comments before the floor votes, calling to ask your legislator what their stance is, calling to ask others, or to ask that legislator to vote yes on a bill or no on a bill, and even using your social media, asking, asking for groups that you're in, making sure that people are aware and also are calling their legislators and encouraging others to support that bill. A lot of times, a lot of people don't necessarily, you know, actively reach out to legislators if it doesn't directly affect them. But if I have a friend who is affected by it and they're asking me to call and they're telling me their why, that that pushes me to want to make a change for them. So really your power of your community and telling your story to your community is just as powerful as directly calling your legislator. Budget season, emphasizing local impact, what services, work, the waiting list, the workforce. Um, I know the governor did his budget address today, and there's some things that people might be happy or sad about, but letting them know how they're feeling about that budget and how that might affect them. So it's never too early, even though the budget was passed, that we can still say, hey, I'm disappointed that this is the way you voted, or thank you for including this. This is very impactful to my family and is going to help us with A, B, or C. And then after the passage, of watching how things are being implemented, regulations, waivers, and guidance. So making sure to keep a watch on it, because sometimes something that we think is going to be so great isn't necessarily. So we want to watch how it works, how it plays out, and if it's being played out effectively. So current Pennsylvania issues to watch, and this is obviously it's past January 1st, but there were some waiver changes that went into effect January 1st, and you want to watch the record of change and ask how changes affect your services. The DSP workforce and rates, the proposal for the IDA fee schedule rates tied to market index for direct support professionals, DSP services, and that was to make sure that there's sustainable rates to keep DSPs to fight that staffing shortage. I believe I didn't watch the whole budget, but I don't think that it necessarily any specific thing passed in the budget tied to DSP rates. So that's something that if you're passionate about, and I'm using that as an example a lot today, but there are many other things, but that's something that you might want to call the governor's office and discuss. Um, Autism screening. So there's proposals for provisions related to autism screening, and voluntary screening in child care centers, asking implementation would be funded and supported. Um, and then justice protections, we're not just talking about, funding, we're also talking about how our folks are safe in our community. What trainings do our local police have, and various advocacy around those items. And then just as a little aside, I mean, ODP has public comment periods every time that they have any waiver changes. There's always a mechanism that you can send an email, and then there's also usually a chance for a webinar or something that where you can actually voice and promote and advocate to ODP. And that is definitely a low barrier way to advocate, especially if you don't feel comfortable necessarily, talking to a legislator, sending an email expressing how you feel that a proposed change is going to affect you negatively or positively is very powerful. The ODP absolutely uses those comments. We've seen it over, as the performance-based contracting has gone into place, that things have certainly changed from their original draft to the actual implementation based on those comments. It is so important, that to give the feedback and give feedback from real life situations. And then a couple big federal issues that might affect daily life, and just some keywords to be aware of that you want to make sure if you're advocating that are really important is to look at the Medicaid and home and community-based waivers. Um, these help the states provide long-term services and supports in the home and the community. We want to watch for funding changes, eligibility changes, sorry, and redeterminations. And this is just my quick aside, since I have the platform here, that if you receive Medicaid, make sure your contact information is updated and respond to renewal requests quickly. If you're unsure, reach out for help before deadlines. It's so important for continuity of care, for services to continue, to make sure that you're on top of that for yourself. The IDEA, and this has been a hot topic recently, which is to provide access to free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. We'll look for keywords of special education funding, staffing, transition supports. It's very important for the protection of our students in schools that the IDA continues and is schools are funded. So those are some big federal topics, as well as SSI and the ABLE accounts. ABLE accounts can really help families save for disability related expenses. There was a new expansion to disability onset before age 46 for those ABLE acts that went into effect on 1/1/26. That could be really beneficial to some folks. Looking at resource limits, how this affects you positively, negatively. There's a lot of different things within the SSI funding, and it all is connected with Medicaid. And it's important to advocate for what works and what creates the least amount of barriers. So a couple tips to track issues and stay engaged in what's going on. And I have some website links in this, which again, I'll send out. But finding your legislators, if you on Pennsylvania, there's a Find My Legislator. I have a QR code at the end that will help you find that, and you can type in your address and you're gonna be able to find who's in your district and who you want to advocate to, who you want to call, or send your emails to. And the same thing with federal. The House and Senate, you have the ability to go on the websites and do find your member, and look for your Pennsylvania senators and your congressmen. If you want to follow PA bills, you can do the PA General Assembly bills page to see the status of them, the committee sponsors and actions. You can ask staff for the bill number and printer's number. More directly for IDD is going on to My ODP, signing up for ODP announcements, waiver documentations, and training updates, so that you can stay up to date on what's happening. If you sign up for the ODP announcements, you'll get alerts when public comment periods are coming out and any changes. And that might be a lot, and kind of digging for yourself might be a little bit overwhelming. So there are multiple agencies out there that will give information on the key issues that are affecting the IDD population, autism. Obviously we are an ARC chapter, so I will give you the ARC of PA's website has a tons of information on advocacy, toolkits, and key issues. They have action alerts that you can sign up for, and you're alerted when key issues arise that require action. PAR is another great resource that has toolkits and has hot topic issues in the newsletters that will help you kind of not have to dig for yourself and read through massive long bills that have a lot of words that and a lot of times these agencies too will also give form letters. They'll post on social media some verbiage of what makes sense when you're calling to your local legislators of what to say. par. So for example, today after the governor's budget talk, they have a debrief of just directly what's affecting IDD and within the IDD world and provider world, so that you don't have to listen to the long speech and kind of decipher what affects you and what does not affect you. So truly, the internet is a beautiful thing in this, and these are just two resources. There's federal, there's Anchor, there's a bunch of different places that you can go to get tools to stay updated, so that you're not having to unpack some of that legalese and saving time, because I know time is an issue for many of us. So I just have some of our key federal and state contacts, and I'll send the PowerPoint out as well, but of who our representatives are. We have our Congressman Ryan McKenzie, and then his website. And then I also have links of, I think sometimes it becomes difficult, what does your senator do? What does your PA congressman versus your state senator do? So there's some links that give simple explanations of the difference of the governor and the senator, and because everybody does something different and has a different role. So those are some just helpful links if you want to check them out. When you're calling your representatives, a lot of times that, especially at the federal level, that they have staffers who handle specific inquiries or complaints or whatever it is so asking when you're calling to speak with somebody who handles disability, human services, or education is a quick tip that might help you have a better conversation with somebody if you're looking for that initial conversation with somebody personally. And here are some of our PA state senators. Again, Lisa Boscola is Northampton and Lehigh. She does Bethlehem City, I believe. And then Nick Miller and Jarrett Coleman are in Lehigh County. And then we have our PA state representatives, which there's quite a few. And just the general area I have listed here of where they're at. But again, you can always use Find My Legislator and enter your address and find exactly who is in your district. And that's really important that you want to verify, because again, your legislators want to hear from the people within their districts and what is directly affecting them. Your county government contacts. Lehigh County is the Board of Commissioners. I have a link here for their page. They have meetings on a regular basis, both, and they allow for public comment. I think Lehigh, you have to submit a request to speak beforehand. I'm not 100% sure for Northampton County. And that's looking at the broader issues. If you're looking for access to services, each county has an information and referral hotline that you would reach out to help you get started within those services. And when you're looking at the difference of what to advocate for at each level, a lot of times at the county government level, you're looking at local human services funding that's allocated within the county, maybe county-run transportation options, emergency preparedness for people with disabilities, and community housing and planning discussions. So just a quick wrap up of a lot of information. 3 quick things you can do this month to get started is, one, you can find who your elected officials are if you don't know, and save their contact information. Think about your 90-second story and what you want to ask and create a smart ask. And if you're feeling up to it, make one contact, an email, a call, whatever it might be, to just start that process of empowering yourself and getting your voice out there. Does anybody at this point have any questions?
So I am gonna go ahead and stop the recording. So
Okay.
we can have a more open conversation if anybody has specific questions.
Sure.